my X-Men.
The highly anticipated X-Men 97 is finally here, and the first 2 episodes have been released. Expectations from this reboot of the original X-Men animated series from the 90s were sky high, and it is still early days to pass a verdict on the new show. That being said, the first couple of episodes have been an eventful affair with loads of twists and turns, setting things up for a promising series ahead of us. In this video, we will explore the episodes in detail, analyzing the tricky climax, and we will also try to decipher what comes next in the following episodes. There will be a few major spoilers along the way, so you have been warned. But before we do that, we have a small request. If you enjoy our content, please give this video a massive thumbs up, share it with your friends, and smash that subscribe button with the notification bell turned to all while you're at it. It helps us create the content that you love and bring in more marvelous viewers like you. Now, on to the video. How does the show set up an interesting new world for the X-Men? Episode and ending explained. X-Men 97 starts off with the promise of a new world that is more sympathetic to the mutant cause. The first episode, titled To Me, My X-Men, begins with a news report talking about the growing sympathy for mutants among the humans following the death of Professor Xavier. But is all of mankind ready to embrace mutants as their equals? We find out the answer pretty soon when members of the Friends of Humanity kidnap a young boy named Roberto for being a mutant. In spite of their provocations, the boy refuses to use his mutant powers against them, but the men from the mutant-hating group are still keen on torturing him. However, their hate crime is interrupted by Storm, Bishop, and Cyclops, who make quick work of the mutant-hating men. But to their surprise, the X-Men find out that the Friends of Humanity has access to some Sentinel technology and weapons. One such weapon pins down Cyclops, but he soon uses his powerful laser beam to get out of the situation. The X-Men bring in the kid for questioning about the possible origin of the Sentinel tech, but the kid is not keen on staying among them. Meanwhile, it is revealed that Jean Grey is pregnant with Cyclops' baby boy, and she seems keen on leaving the X-Men behind to start a family of their own. On the other hand, Wolverine tries to intimidate the mutant kid Roberto after Jubilee's request to show his mutant powers fail. The attempt backfires as Roberto flees from the X-Men, only to be apprehended by them later at a nightclub. He agrees to come along with the X-Men if Jubilee agrees to a dance, and there is a hint of a chemistry brewing between them. Cyclops interacts with the UN official Dr. Cooper regarding the Sentinel weapons among the Friends of Humanity members, but she is clueless about the source. To further investigate the matter, Cyclops and Storm head out to interrogate Mr. Gyrick, the man responsible for Professor Xavier's death. Even after being offered a reduced sentence, Mr. Gyrick refuses to share any information, and Jean Grey gets into her mind to find out what he is hiding. She is traumatized during this attempt and discovers the presence of Master Mold. She also has a vision where she is in great distress and all alone trying to protect her baby. Bolivar Trask, the man who was the mastermind behind the killing of Xavier, seems to be the man behind the new conspiracy as well, and the X-Men move out to get him. Back at Trask's base, the X-Men are attacked by Master Mold look-alike robots, but they are no match for the mutant superheroes. Finally, Wolverine beheads Master Mold with a little help from Morph, and the UN soldiers arrive along with Dr. Cooper to take Bolivar Trask away. We then get a little glimpse into Roberto's incredible mutant powers, and he reveals to Jubilee that he is powered by solar energy and struggles with his mutant identity. For now, he doesn't want to be a part of the X-Men, and he leaves while Jubilee seems clearly smitten by his charms. The episode ends with the arrival of Magneto just as the X-Men are discussing the potential future leader after Cyclops and Jean Grey leave the group to have a life of their own. Magneto reveals that Professor X had willed all his belongings to him, and he decides to take up the responsibility as the new leader of the X-Men. Mutant liberation begins, the episode with a clever twist. The second episode takes off with a new version of Magneto who seems to be a changed man. The opening sequence shows him protecting a few mutants from the Friends of Humanity, but unlike his previous avatar, he does not kill the enemy and merely captures them in Professor Xavier's style of violence only when necessary. However, Cyclops and some of the other X-Men are still hesitant to trust him blindly, and you really cannot blame them, given that Magneto has been one of their long-standing enemies. Meanwhile, a candid conversation conversation between Jean Grey and Storm reveals that Jean is hesitant about her baby boy being a mutant. She wants him to be a human baby so that he doesn't have to grow up in a world that discriminates against him. There is also a crucial private meeting between Magneto and Rogue, where Magneto hints at something sinister that Rogue may have done before, suggesting that the X-Men wouldn't trust her if they knew about this. The narrative doesn't reveal what it is, but Rogue is quick to remark that the thing better be kept a closely guarded secret. Is it about a secret affair between the two? Magneto is making a genuine effort to reconcile with the X-Men, but he is interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Cooper along with UN troops. She is there to arrest him so that he can stand trial for all his previous crimes against humanity. The new version of Magneto agrees to go along peacefully under the promise that the trial will be fair. The trial begins with a lot of mutant-hating people assembled outside. Magneto tries to plead his case by suggesting that he only acted violently as a means of protecting his people, just like the humans did, but the trial is interrupted by mutant-hating protesters who break into the compound. Meanwhile, Jean Grey goes into labor and Wolverine drives her to the hospital, and she sends a telepathic message to Cyclops, who is present at the trial. After Cyclops goes to attend to his wife, the chaos unleashed by the protesters is handled by the remaining X-Men. However, Executioner manages to shoot at Magneto in this chaos, and Storm takes the hit while trying to protect him. The shot leaves her without her powers, and Magneto still maintains his calm, even though he is annoyed by the hypocrisy of the judges who failed to control their own people. He saves them from the protesters who also want to take down the judges for giving a mutant a fair trial. The UN issues a pardon for Magneto and even decides to admit the mutant nation of Genosha as its member states. Jean Grey gives birth to a baby boy who is named Nathan Charles Summers, and Cyclops and Magneto finally seem to have built a bridge of trust. The second episode ends with two crucial twists. Storm leaves the X-Men, leaving a letter for Jean Grey about how she can no longer function alongside them without her powers. The climactic twist is perhaps the biggest shocker, as the actual Jean Grey arrives at the door claiming that she needs help from the X-Men. Everyone watches in shock as a bewildered Cyclops looks back at the woman he just had a baby with. If Jean Grey has just arrived, then who was the woman posing as Jean Grey all along?
Tu sais, j'arrête pas de penser à mon arrivée à l'Institut.
What happens next? Who is the original Jean Grey? This will be the million-dollar question going ahead in the show, but the comic book fans might just know the answer to this. If the show remains true to the source material, then you have to consider that the comic books never show Cyclops and Jean Grey having a baby. In fact, he has a baby with Jean Grey's clone Madeline Pryor, and this baby is named Nathan Summers, just like it is shown in the series. The narrative in the first two episodes clearly suggests that Cyclops is unaware of the truth behind the woman he had a baby with, and even the other members of the X-Men are clueless about it. If the show takes the path of the comic book narrative, then Jean Grey will be taken in by Cyclops and her clone Madeline Pryor, and the baby will be abandoned. This will eventually drive her to a life of villainy, and it would also have some significance for her vision when she entered the mind of Mr. Girick in prison, where she saw herself struggling to protect her baby boy. We have to wait and watch to find out the answers. Will Storm get back her powers? One of the most shocking moments in the second episode is when Storm gets hit by a shot from Executioner, and she loses her powers following the impact. There is a touching scene where we see Storm fearing a thunderstorm raging outside, and the loss of her powers has also affected her mental state. Beast examines the condition, and he remarks that he will need further experiments to specify the magnitude of the damage and the nature of the weapon. However, he is able to deduce that the laser shooting rifle fired at Storm contains a high dose of radiation that takes away the mutant powers, just like the collars that are put on them to weaken them temporarily. But Beast also suggests remorsefully that Storm's condition could be irreversible. She probably leaves the X-Men because she doesn't want to be a burden on the group, but she could also be headed somewhere to find a cure for her condition. We don't know if Storm will get her powers back, but it can be said with certainty that she will make a comeback in the series because she is too big a character to lose so early. In fact, in all likelihood, she will get her powers back as well, and it might prove to be a game changer in the bigger challenges that are in store for the X-Men.
Magneto, the last will and testament of Charles Xavier.
Is Magneto really a reformed man? Given his long track record of being a dreaded X-Men villain, it might be difficult for the fans to digest his positive side. X-Men 97 presents a version of Magneto who is clearly moved by the parting words of Xavier and the responsibility given to him. He seems to believe in Xavier's cause of human-mutant coexistence, and many of his actions prove that he is indeed a changed man. He doesn't resort to violence when the UN troops take him in, and he exercises restraint even when Storm is shot right in front of his eyes. There is a genuine effort on his part to win over the trust of the X-Men, including Cyclops, who is the most hesitant to trust him blindly. Although it is too early to rule out the possibility of Magneto turning back to his evil and violent ways, it does seem unlikely at this point. Being the leader of the X-Men seems to have given him a sense of responsibility and accountability, and so far, he has done everything in his power to stick to his promise to Professor Xavier.
Trace qu'on n'est pas venu là pour se battre.
Is the Sentinel threat real? There have been a couple of instances in the first 2 episodes that highlight the availability of Sentinel weapons and technology among the mutant-hating groups like Friends of Humanity. The UN claims to be clueless about the same, but a bigger conspiracy may well be in the works. In some secret corner of the world, the Sentinel program may be in progress, and a particular group or individual might be empowering the mutant-hating groups with specialized weapons to trouble the X-Men and other mutants. The obvious hints about a Sentinel involvement in some form are all over the 2 episodes, and we will be surprised if the narrative doesn't take it forward and shed more light on this matter. Will we see more of Roberto going ahead? Is Jubilee crushing over him? The very first episode of X-Men 97 introduces us to a new mutant named Roberto, and he is none other than the powerful Sunspot who has appeared in various X-Men projects before. He wasn't a part of the original X-Men, the animated series, but since such a major character is introduced in the reboot series, it is unlikely that his presence is only for a solitary episode. He opens up to Jubilee, who seems to be drawn towards this handsome young man. She tries to comfort him about his mutant condition, and even though Roberto reveals his powers to her, he doesn't agree to stay back with the X-Men. He seems to desire a regular life without the responsibility of his mutant powers, and all that can change pretty quickly if Jubilee is in trouble going ahead. He seems to have taken a liking to the young lady as well, and we strongly anticipate some chemistry between the two in the upcoming episodes. Marvelous verdict. Looks like a promising start. It is a difficult task to live up to the legacy of a show as great as X-Men the Animated Series, but X-Men 97 has started off in style, setting up the story quite nicely for the first season. The visuals and animation of the show do give you a flavor of the 90s, and the narrative does well to pick up from where the original series left off. Also, the first 2 episodes that have been released have already established a crucial twist, with the appearance of the real Jean Grey at the end. Storm losing her powers and leaving the X-Men, or Magneto having a change of heart and going along with Xavier's dreams and philosophies, set up a nice premise which the new series can build upon. If the story arc stays true to the comics and creates such well-knit and exciting episodes, X-Men 97 will be viewed as a worthy successor by the fans. If you haven't watched the show already, you should check out the 2 episodes immediately. We promise that you will be hooked onto the narrative, and don't forget to tell us in the comments below about your thoughts on the show and what you think might happen going ahead.